Hello and welcome to this month's video podcast brought to you by AMSYS Training. As always, if you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to contact podcasts@amsys.co.uk. The topic for today's podcast is Macintosh Healthcare. The main points of discussion will be getting out of troublesome situations, techniques to resolve persistent issues, a few solutions if your hardware breaks down, and finally some general maintenance tips. So let's start by looking at some tips for getting out of trouble. The first tip is simply just to be patient. I often see people force quitting applications and ripping the power lead out of their computer when the machine's simply trying to process the request that they've entered. It's always worth giving the machine at least a minute just to try and finish what it's doing. If after that it's still not responding, then there could certainly be a problem. Secondly, if you do see signs of trouble, then do try and save your work, as an application crash or a complete machine crash could cause loss of data. And the third tip is to try force quitting the application, which we're going to take a look at now. If an application becomes unresponsive, you can initiate a force quit one of three ways. The first method is by clicking on the Apple menu at the top left of your screen and then selecting Force Quit. This will open a menu with a list of running applications. From here you can quit the troublesome program. Your second option is to click and then hold your mouse button on the application's icon in the dock, and then from the menu select Force Quit. Your third and final option is to bring up the Force Quit menu by simultaneously pressing Command, Option and Escape, otherwise known as the Apple key, the Alt key and the Escape key. If the system is still unresponsive, the last resort is to force the machine to shut down by holding down the power button, but do remember that any unsaved work will be lost. Next, we're going to look at how you would go about curing a more persistent problem. The first recommendation is for you to use a systematic approach. Try and troubleshoot in a logical order and document your findings. We will also look at a technique known as the split half search and also some diagnostic utilities that can help during diagnosis. So let's look at the split half search first. The goal here is basically to eliminate the possible causes until you are left with one option. As an example, if your machine was to crash when you have your peripherals plugged in, but you have 8 different peripherals connected, instead of unplugging them one at a time, unplug 4 of them and see if the problem still reoccurs. Then repeat the process with the remaining 4 and so on. With regards to diagnostics, you do have a large number of tools available. Most are in the Utilities folder, which is inside your Applications folder. On the other hand, if you suspect a hardware fault with your machine, then you could try using the Apple Hardware Test CD that came with your Mac for diagnosis. Next, I'd like to cover a couple of example scenarios. The first example is quite a common one, where a file won't open. So in this example we've got a test Word document, but when I've tried to open it by double clicking the icon, it doesn't open. One of the easiest solutions to this problem is to try and open the document with another application if there's one available. So by control clicking on the icon and selecting Open With, I can see that Microsoft Word is the default application, but I could also select Text Edit. The other alternative way to achieve this is just to grab the document icon and drop it onto the application icon in the dock. So if we look at this and other possible solutions to this problem, we've obviously got, as we've said, try an alternate application. You can also try using a different user account. The advantage of trying this is that any preference files in your current home folder will not be used in the new user account. Or if you have the option, do try the file on a different machine. This will tell you whether it's the file or your machine that's causing the problem. The next example we'll look at is when an application won't launch. In this example, iCal is failing to respond, as you can see in the video. There are a few different workarounds for this problem, but one of the easiest is just to try an alternate user account. If you have one enabled, just go to the top right corner of your screen and select the other user account using the fast user switching option. Another option available to you is to try moving the application's preference files. They're normally located in the Preferences folder, which is inside the Library folder inside your hard drive. If neither of these techniques work, then it normally means there's something seriously wrong with the application and you'd be best off removing and reinstalling the program. The final example that we'll look at is when your machine won't boot at all. For this issue there's quite a few choices, but the first one I normally go for is to try a safe boot. A safe boot is simply a way of booting the machine in a simplified state that can tell you whether or not any additional applications could be causing the machine to fail to start up. To initiate a safe boot, simply start up your computer holding down the Shift key on your keyboard. The second option is to try reinstalling your operating system using something called the archive and install method. So let's take a look at that now. You need to start off by inserting your macOS 10 install CD, then start up the computer holding down the C key on your keyboard until you see the Apple logo appear. Once the machine is booted, progress through the installer until you get to the Select a Destination screen, then click on the Options button at the bottom of the screen. A new sheet will appear and all you need to do is select Archive and Install as shown on screen. Be careful not to select any of the other options so that you can avoid wiping your hard drive. Once the process is completed, the machine will reboot, and if you open up your hard drive you will see a Previous Systems folder. Your applications and all of your data should be left untouched. The next part of this podcast will look at what you should do if your hardware breaks down. One of the first steps is to confirm that the issue is definitely caused by hardware. This is important to help you avoid sending your machine away, only to find the issue was something you could have resolved yourself. Secondly, you need to check the warranty status of your computer, which I'll show you how to do in a second. And then finally, just book the machine in for a repair. So the question is, how do you go about ruling out the operating system as a cause of the problem? Well, there's a number of ways that you can do this, and the first and easiest one is just to boot from your OS X install DVD. The only problem with this is its limitations, as the DVD only boots into the installer and not into the full operating system. So if you've got a more subtle fault like iTunes not running, then this method wouldn't be able to help you. The second technique is to boot from an external FireWire drive that has OS X installed. This has a distinct advantage over the OS X install DVD, as you get into the full operating system along with all the applications. And a third option is to boot your computer from another computer that is in target disk mode. If you want to do this, all you will need to do is boot the known working computer by holding down the T key, connecting a 6-pin to 6-pin FireWire cable between the two computers, and then starting your machine by holding down the Alt key. This will bring you to the Startup Manager where you can select the alternative machine's hard drive as the boot device. It essentially achieves the same thing as an external FireWire drive. Next, I'd like to explain how you go about checking the warranty status of your computer. To do this, all you need to do is launch Safari from the dock, and go to www.apple.com/support. And if we scroll across to the right and halfway down the screen, you'll see a section about your support coverage. All you need to do here is enter your serial number, as you can see I'm doing here. Then simply click on Go, and after a few seconds your warranty status will be displayed. This will normally give you three options. If your machine is covered by the Apple Care Protection Plan, then just contact Apple directly or go to apple.com/support. If your machine is covered by its first year warranty, then contact AMSYS on 0208 660 9999 and we can arrange collection and repair of your machine. In this instance, parts and labour will be covered. If your machine has no warranty coverage, then contact AMSYS and we can arrange to assess the machine and provide you with a quotation for the repair. And finally, let's take a look at some general maintenance tips. The first recommendation I would make would be to perform a permissions repair, maybe once a month or after installing any new software. So to do this, all you need to do is click on the Go menu at the top of the screen, then scroll down to Utilities. Once in the Utilities folder, just locate Disk Utility and double click to launch it. And once it's launched, just click on the disk you want to check, click on First Aid if it's not already selected, and then click Verify Disk Permissions. This will take a couple of minutes depending on the size of your hard drive. If the check does show any issues, then just click on the Repair Disk Permissions button. The second recommendation is to perform a disk repair on a regular basis using Apple's Disk Utility. The process is almost the same as the Verify Disk Permissions. Just go to the Utilities folder, launch Disk Utility, click on your hard drive, and then click on Verify Disk. As you can see on screen, the Repair Disk button is greyed out. Unlike the Repair Disk Permissions feature, to repair the disk you will need to boot from your OS X install DVD. The last recommendation is to check regularly for software updates. These updates often include bug fixes, security patches, and general improvements to the stability of the system. So to perform a software update, just go to the Apple menu at the top left of your screen and then select the second option, which is Software Update. This will automatically check for any new software available. If you don't want to have to remember to launch Software Update, just go down to the System Preferences in your dock, scroll down to the fourth row and click on Software Update. On this screen you can schedule your machine to check regularly for updates. So I hope you've enjoyed this month's podcast. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.